Hello, today I want to present mvcExpress version 2 extension for workers. My name is Raimondas Banevičius. I am Senior ActionScript 3 developer and I'm working with Flash from 2001. I am also author for mvcExpress framework. So what is mvcExpress framework? It is ActionScript 3 architectural framework. It is built on MVC pattern. It has a fast and convenient API. It is built around dependency injection. It has very fast messaging system. It has modular programming support by default, and it can be also extended. Let's talk about ActionScript 3 workers. With workers, you can have concurrency in Flash. In other words, you can have your code executed in background along with main application. To have workers, you need Flash Player 11.4 and up. It does crash with 11.5. Also, you can have in desktop and Android Air application with Air 3.4 and up. There is no iOS support. To communicate between workers, you have to use message channels. Also, you can share properties between workers. If you try to use workers, you will see that they are actually very hard to use and maintain. To solve this problem, I created mvcExpress extension for workers, and with it you can use workers very easily. So let's see an example. We will create mvcExpress project. We will add very CPU intensive code in it. We will move this code into worker. We will see how we can debug it with Adobe Scout. We will implement communication between workers, and we will see how we can create workers from loaded SPF. Let's start with simple Hello World application. We have some additional compile options. These are keep AS3 metadata for inject and define config debug to true. Every mvcExpress project should use those two. And when you release, you should change config debug from true to false. What we have here is mvcExpress version 2 debug SCC file. We have library source for mvcExpress extension for workers. Also we have extended stats to see how our application behaves. And we have main class that will wait for itself to be loaded and added to stage. It will add starts and it will just trace hello world. Let's see how it works. So we have a trace and we have starts running and showing how application performs. Let's create mvcExpress module out of it. I will use template. Let's now create it from main class. And this is it. We have mvcExpress application running. Let's imagine that this application will have CPU intensive work to do. I will simulate it by just creating a command that will wait for a couple of seconds. Let's create this command. CPU intensive command. This command will just wait for a couple of seconds. And what I will do here, I will just execute same command after a couple of frames. This is not a good use for command. Normally it should be triggered from outside, from proxy or from mediator. But for example, let's just use it. Let's execute it from our main module. And let's see now how our application behaves. So as you see, it holds for 2 seconds, then it runs for a couple of frames, then it stucks again. Now let's imagine this code actually does something useful, calculates something, and it sends result to our application. For example, I will just send time. Test time. And now let's quickly create main mediator and show this time in text field. Let's add handler for our time. This function will get time parameter. And now let's just put it into text field. Let's push it down to position 100 to make it visible. Let's add it to our view. Store it as a field. And can we handle time? Let's just show it. We also need to map this mediator and mediate our view. We do it in main module. Let's see how our application behaves now. So our application stacks for 2 seconds, and we also see current milliseconds sent to our main screen. Let's say we want to improve this application and introduce workers. I will show you how easy it is to change application to use workers. So first of all, we need to change module core to module worker. This is module file that supports workers. Now we can start background module as worker. But for that we actually need another module. Let's create it. Let's call it remote worker. Let's create a module, remote module. Again, we need to use module worker, and we'll not be starting this module because there is nothing to show in it. Now let's move our execution code, our CPU intensive command, from one worker to another. And let's move execution. Now we have second module, but we need one more thing. Then we use workers. It's very important to know module names. We will use module names to communicate between workers. Let's create a class to store module names. Let's move main module name into this class. And let's do same with remote worker. Now we are ready to actually start our background worker. Let's go to main module. To start background worker, you need to use function start worker. You need to pass module class for remote worker, and you need to pass name for that module. Let's try and run it. We get an error. Worker needs SVF bytes to be constructed. You can pass it in start worker or set it from module worker class with setRoot SVF bytes. To start background worker, you need SVF bytes of that worker. You can do it in two ways. You can load it, or you can use main application for this. Let's try to use main application. We can go to main class and say module set root svf bytes and load info bytes. That's it. Let's run it. This should fail again. Now we have another problem. This feature is not available within this context. So basically what happens now, as a main class is duplicated and it runs in background worker. Background worker doesn't have display list, so adding starts will fail. Also, main module line have to be treated specially. What you want to do, you want to leave main module instantiation, because this way framework detects background module and will actually create remote module instead of main module. Setting root and starting doesn't make sense in background worker. You can fix it by using isPrimordial check. There is a shortcut for that. Worker manager is primordial. By the way, you can also check if workers are supported here. And we will do the same for our start function. Let's run our application now. So it no longer crashes. Let's check if workers actually works. You can already see that you have two Hello World traces, but let's check it with Adobe Scout. Adobe Scout is a very nice application to debug Flash. To debug workers, you have to check if preferences start session for ActionScript workers is checked. Let's run our application with Scout. As you can see, we have workers test duplicated, main thread and background thread, which is actually executing our CPU intensive command. So our background worker now calculates, but we don't see output here. Let's fix that. To communicate between workers, there is a special function for this. Instead of send message, we will use send worker message. This function is not available in plain command. We need to use command worker. Send worker message will require one additional parameter, and it is destination worker module name. It is worker main module. We have to do same changes in main mediator. Instead of handling simple message, we will handle worker message. But for that, we will need mediator worker. And again, we will need remote mediator name. This message comes from remote module. And this is it. Now we made communication between two workers. This communication will use workers' channels. As you can see, background worker is started, and every 2 seconds it sends result in our main application. Let's make one more change to our application. Using main file for our remote worker is very convenient. But it's not the best practice because it duplicates all code in it, and most of it's not needed for our remote worker. It's better to create dedicated file for this. In mvcExpress, module represents standalone application, so it's very easy to create application out of this. Let's create sprite. But now, instead of simple sprite, let's use worker sprite. Worker sprite is a helper class. It is designed to make the life easier while you work with workers. To use it, you just need override init function. Worker sprite will wait for it to be fully loaded, then it will check if this file is primordial. If it is, it will run init function. If it isn't primordial, it will try to run background worker. So let's just use our remote module here. We don't need to start it because it is not meant to contain any visuals. Let's now compile it. As you see, it compiles perfectly well, and we can notice that every 2 seconds application lags. This is because our CPU intensive command is running here. Now let's go back to our main application. Instead of start worker function, let's load our remote SVF file. Should be remote.svf from same folder. Let's skip progress, error checking. And let's handle load complete. We can start our worker in the same fashion. We will actually send our loaded SVF bytes here. So we have event target as loaded info. .bytes. This is it. Now if we run our application, our background worker will be loaded from remote SVF, and as we see, our application still runs perfectly fine. Let's do one more test. Let's see what will happen if we run this application with Flash Player that doesn't support workers. Let's run it with Flash Player 10.1. As you can see, application runs properly, but workers are not supported and it runs single-threaded. It is your responsibility to detect when workers are not supported and offer alternative solution. Let's recap mvcExpress worker extension features. First of all, you have to use module worker class. It is mvcExpress module extended with worker features. You can create background workers with other module workers with start worker function. For that to work, you have to either use main SVF file bytes and set it with set root SVF bytes function, or you have to load another SVF file and pass it to start worker function. Another thing that is so convenient with mvcExpress worker extension is that it will automatically register class aliases for you. That means that if you will send custom objects between workers, they will be fully typed. You can send message with parameter between workers with send worker message functions, and after that you can handle them in mediators or execute the command. Worker class is retrieved dynamically by mvcExpress extension. That means that you can freely use it even with Flash Player 10 and it will not crash. That's why I would recommend you use Worker Manager to check if workers are supported instead of worker class, and also you should use Worker Manager is primordial to check if your current worker is primordial. This extension will also detect Flash Player 11.5 and fall back to single threading. Flash Player 11.5 can't handle workers properly and will crash if you will try to use message channels. Also, worker sprite is very convenient for creating main class of your worker application. To know more about mvcExpress, go to mvcexpress.org. You can find code for it in GitHub, including example files as just showed you. If you have any questions, just go to forum. If you like this presentation, please share and like it, and thank you for your time.